What's going on, guys? It's Reed. Thank you so much for joining me today on the channel where we are ending the stigma of mental health as we know it. This channel is all about spreading love, joy, hope, inspiration, motivation, but then overall positivity with the whole giant world of the internet so people know that they are not alone in this life and that this life is worth living. Before we get started, make sure to like this video, share it up, then also subscribe to this channel to be on this journey with us. I will always be here to love and support you. So I hope that you'll be here to love and support me as well because we all go through struggles, including myself. Let's get started. This video today is all about me and my life and how I got to be the person I am today. We're gonna start when I was just a little itty bitty baby to where I am now in my apartment making this video and how I became who I am on this journey of ending the stigma of mental health. So here we go. Pardon me if I get emotional because I get emotional about some stuff. So just let it happen. I was born in January 1993, best month of the year, and at that point I had a 5-year-old sister. Then there was me. 18 months later was my younger sister. Our parents were not together when my younger sister was born, and if they were, it was for a little bit. So I have no recollection of my parents being together, of their marriage, of them being life partners, or parenting together, anything like that. I was this big. I got nothing. So then about 4 or 5 years later, my dad remarries, my mom remarries. A year after that, my mom and stepdad have my younger brother. So he is now 20. So that is our time frame. My dad's second marriage was the result of an affair while we were all really little. So that happened there. He ended up marrying her. So when I talk about like my stepmom or anything like that, that is what I am talking about. Us girls would go to my dad's house every other weekend. Him and his second wife didn't have the healthiest relationship, but my mom and my stepdad did, in my eyes. That is my personal opinion. I can't speak for my siblings. I can't speak for them who have lived their relationships. But for me, my dad and my stepmom's was not healthy. My mom and my stepdad's was. Got it? So we would go to my dad's house. My dad was in a local band. He would play around the town, state, wherever. Sometimes we would go, sometimes we wouldn't. He would get home pretty late. Him and my stepmom would both sleep pretty late, so my younger sister and I kind of really fended for ourselves. We would get money, we would walk to the local donut shop on Saturday mornings, we would walk to the gas station in the mornings, in the afternoon, to get food, because we were kind of just on our own, and I don't want to put my dad on blast here, because that was who he was at the time, and that was his life, and it's made us who we are, so it's okay. So don't think I'm just blasting my dad talking crap, because I'm not. I'm just acknowledging this is my point of view of my life. So we would do that. Him and my stepmom, we're not putting names in here either. Him and my stepmom, like I said, not the best marriage. There was fights that would get pretty aggressive. One fight in particular, police were called. I still put the blame on myself for that. That's okay. I will work through that. Some fights we would have to leave the area. There are still songs to this day that I won't listen to because it reminds me of those times and I just can't handle it. So overall, not a healthy relationship, but that's kind of what we had to watch growing up as what like a healthy relationship was. And then my stepdad and my mom, they lived together and that's who I lived with majority of the time. So that's kind of who I had to watch, which was great. So overall growing up, that's kind of how my life was every other weekend at my dad's. Up until I hit probably, we'll say like 12, where I decided I was not going anymore. It didn't bring me joy going over there. I didn't like it. I was uncomfortable. I was kind of always scared of when that next fight was going to happen, and I did not want to put myself in that position ever again. It was just terrifying to me. So I stopped going. At that point, I really didn't have much communication with my dad at all. I kind of just cut it off. My poor little sister still had to go all by herself. Thankfully, she brought a friend with her, so she wasn't all alone, but she still went, but I was kind of done. I had enough. There's also little things that I kind of found out about along the way prior to not going over there anymore that stuck with me, so I started holding a lot of grudges and resentment towards my dad, which really didn't get worked out until later in life. So I really held grudges towards him, trust me, because I saw my mom as the perfect little angel lady that she is, and I was just mad. I was so mad. So I stopped going over there, and then just being at my mom's all the time. That was fine. 8th grade comes around, and there was a girl that I was friends with in about 7th grade. We really fell out of friendship in 8th grade, where she really turned against me. She decided she was not on the read train anymore, if she ever was in the first place, and she really made my life a living hell. And to this day, I still think she has no idea that she has had this impact on my life, and I don't think she'll ever know, so sorry to her if she sees this video, but it is what it is, and it's my life, and I can share it. So 8th grade, you're going through puberty, you're going through life changes, you're becoming and trying to figure out who you are and what you are in this life, and so puberty hit me like a load of rocks. And so between hormones and all of that stuff, I would always sweat, and I was a chunkier girl at the time. I would not wear tight clothes because I didn't like curves and chunk, because it wasn't cute curves, you're an 8th grader. It was like the fat curves. So I had that, but then I would also sweat, so I'd wear the big baggy t-shirts to feel comfortable in myself. Well, she used that against me hard. She paid this kid one time $1 to send me a rose on Valentine's Day with a note that said, "For Valentine's Day, I will get you a box of Kleenex to put in your t-shirt." Rude. A lot of people in the school knew about it. They asked me about it later if I received it. I was incredibly embarrassed, but I played it off like I didn't get it, and I knew no idea what they were talking about it. But the fact that I still know that happened, it really affected me. And then end of 8th grade rolls around, and she told me that I was too fat to make cheerleading, which I was a chunky kid. Sorry you're perfect, which she wasn't. But I was a chunky kid, so she told me that I was too fat to make cheerleading. That started my eating disorder. Right then, right there. I tried out for cheerleading in spite of her, because I was going to prove to her that I could make it despite my fatness, and I was going to roll with it. But that started an eating disorder that lasted throughout high school, especially with like puberty and all that stuff. I also grew into my body, so between growing into my body and having an eating disorder, I was just this little stick bean. So during that time, if I look back now, is kind of when my depression anxiety started. I remember in health class one day, we were going through the mental health chapter, and being clinically depressed got brought up, and I texted my mom during lunch and saying, "I think I'm clinically depressed." Did I really know what it meant? No. But that's kind of when I realized that something was going on with me mentally that I didn't understand. And that's when suicide was kind of really brought to my life. Like I said, I'll probably get emotional. But that's when suicide was really brought to my life. That's when there was schools around me when you would hear about people taking their lives. And people would really talk about how they did it and stuff like that. There would be shows like Oprah at the time when they would talk about suicide and how they did it, how they would find people after they've taken their life. And it got to the point where I had a room in the basement, and I wouldn't, and this took a long time for me to even like admit to like my family too. I wouldn't sleep in my basement room because I was terrified that I was going to hang myself with a belt from the closet. And like, was I going to? No. When I would talk to the doctor about it later on, she always asked, "Well, do you have a plan?" And I'm like, no. I was scared for me personally because I knew the thoughts in my head were not normal, or what normal was. I knew that wasn't a thing, and it scared me. Sorry guys, but this is real life. This is what mental health is, so here we go. So that's when I started going to an eating disorder counselor and talking to people that had been like 10th grade, stuff like that. Not 10th grade, but whatever. Oh yeah, no, not 10th grade. Beauty school. So like right after graduation and stuff. I was in beauty school. I was super thin. I wasn't anorexic. I wasn't bulimic. I just counted calories like it was my job. I was the queen of counting calories. My Fitness Pal just came out, and I was on it like Blue Bonnet. That was my stuff. So I didn't know how bad like my eating was until I would look back and be like, okay, well, my eating disorder counselor was like, "What do you eat in a day?" And I was like, well, I get up, I go to school, get to school about 8:30 in beauty school. I eat a Fiber One bar. She's like, okay, what else? I was like, I eat a Fiber One bar, that's it. And then it would go to, okay, well, what do you eat for lunch? I'm like, applesauce. And I'm not talking a jar of applesauce, I'm talking like the little cup of applesauce. And I would eat that. And she's like, okay, well, do you work out? And I would work out, but then I'd go eat like Fazoli's. But that'd be my meal for the day. But then I was also, I don't want to use the word addicted because I don't know if you can get addicted to these things, but I was hooked on like hydroxycut pills. And being a person with anxiety, taking that much caffeine in a small frame really messes you up. Really messes you up. So I was in eating disorder counseling for a while, kind of really got past that, which was awesome. Probably the best thing for me at that time. Got really past that. The whole like suicide-y type stuff was kind of really past me. It was always still in the back of my head though. Not that I wanted to take my own life, not that I had a plan to take my own life, but the thoughts were there that I could and that it was easy. And my issue with it was, personally with myself, I didn't want to hurt. I didn't want to die in pain, is how I thought of suicide. I didn't want to go like that. So I kind of knew that wasn't my goal because I don't even like getting a paper cut. So how am I going to go any other way? I don't want to do that. So then I moved out by myself, lived with 2 girls. That didn't work out. Moved in with my boyfriend at the time. We'd been dating for like 5 years at this point. His mom, moved in with her. That was fine. Then kind of like him and I split up. I moved in with my dad for a little bit. That was chill. Then I moved in with my boyfriend. So we'd probably be at like 6 years now. There was a lot of moving going on. A lot of change in my life. And he had cheated on me at one point. I was shady towards him at one point. We were young. Thought we were going to end up together. Whoa. There's a lot going on there, but lived with him for a little bit. We didn't have the healthiest relationship towards the end, but that is what it is as well. It's made us who we are. He's doing great. I'm doing great. We're fine. But then after that, moved out of his spot. We broke up. He had a girlfriend not long after we split up. So guys, we were together for 7 years, and the fact that he had a girlfriend very close after just broke me. I saw it as he didn't fight for me. He didn't want me bad enough to work for it, but I also gave up and wanted him to fight for me. I purposely gave up wanting him to fight for me. And I've had to really look back on that and be like, okay, why do I want that? And I started going to counseling at that point because I was destroyed. And people might think that's a little dramatic, but when I say I was destroyed, I was destroyed. It really hurt me. I just felt very unworthy, unlovable, and I thought it was me. I put him on the highest pedestal. It was all my fault. I could have done more. I could have done better. It was all on me, that breakup was. I pushed him towards his new life. So I started counseling, and we would chit-chat about it, and it was a counselor that really, she is great. She's a great person, but she didn't challenge me. It was kind of like an hour-long vent session, which is chill if that's what you're looking for, but I needed challenge because I didn't work through much. So I started drinking a lot. I've never done drugs, so we're good there, but I started drinking a lot to the point of driving home but not remembering how I got home, waking up on my bathroom floor, chipping a tooth from a bottle from the night before, not remembering. It was a very dark spot for me to where I was like, what am I even doing? Like, what am I even doing here? The best part of that is I got a new job, to where I still am 4 years later. Yay! Got a new job where I had an amazing support system of people who were like, okay, Reed, we're moving forward. We all go through this stuff. We're moving forward. You're fine. We're all fine. Let's go. So that switched over. I then moved in with one of my best friends, close to where I live now. Got a boyfriend, put my all into that. I stopped hanging out with friends, stopped doing things I loved, put all of my energy into him. We ended up moving in together. That was also unhealthy towards the end. Neither one of us knew how to love ourselves, let alone love each other. And we moved so fast. I think we were so infatuated with the idea of having each other that we were just like, no, this is it. I hit pretty close to rock bottom. when I was with him. It is not his fault. I put so much pressure on him and myself for making the relationship work. I was willing to work through anything because I saw what splitting up does to families and all of that. I didn't want to split up. I wanted somebody to fight for me. And so I was in a super dark place, started going to counseling again, started taking depression medication again because I stopped for a short period of time, started writing in a journal. My anxiety was so bad because I was so sad that he was seeing somebody or he was going to get back with his ex. I was so set on that I'd wake up in the middle of the night with just huge panic attacks. And at one point I drove to my mom's house at like 3 in the morning because my anxiety was so bad and I couldn't get a hold of myself. So that was really a tipping point for us because I literally left. I wasn't willing to talk about it and I was just in a dark hole. I ended up at the doctor's office one day because I was done, if you know what I mean. I was done. And so then went to the doctors, we talked. I didn't go to work for 4 days. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't even like look at myself. I had lost about 20 pounds at that point. I'm not a big person in general, but I was down to 125 pounds. I am currently at 150. So I was down to 125 pounds. My face was all broken out from stress. My hair was falling out. I didn't want to do life anymore because I felt so low. And once again, this is not on my ex-boyfriend that I had. It's not on him at all. It's just who I was and where I was at. I have probably still have a lot of self-healing to do when it comes to relationships, and learning to love myself and not put all of my worth on them loving me back. So we ended up splitting up. I moved in with my mom for a little bit. I was still in a dark spot, feeling unworthy, unlovable. No one wants me. No one will stick it out with me. I'm not worth fighting for, stuff like that. So, I don't like getting emotional. I don't, because I'm so happy that I cry. So I was at my mom's. I woke up one day in the middle of the night, and I remember waking up. I was staying in the basement at the time. Everyone was upstairs sleeping, and the first thought I had when I woke up was, do it now. Nobody's awake. No one will know. That is heartbreaking to think about now that I was in that spot. Especially that I know some people are currently there. So I had that. I was going to counseling still. Sorry, water in my eyeballs, can't see. So I was going to counseling then, we would talk about it. And then I moved out to this beautiful, majestic place. I don't like what I look like. I moved here, and then February 2nd, 2019, I just couldn't do it anymore. I went to work, and I had a complete mental breakdown. I think I tried to call my mom, but she didn't answer. So I called my dad, and he was like, well, can you leave work? And I said no, because I had it in my head that if I went home, guys, I'm sorry. I had it in my head that if I went home, then I had 2 bottles of pills that I could take and no one would find me. I was more afraid about nobody finding me for a long time because I lived alone. So I couldn't go home. So I went to my dad's. My dad called my mom. And we talked. And then that night, I went to the doctor's office. It was like an emergency appointment to get in to a doctor who I'd only seen once. But I was like, I can't go home. And he didn't feel safe with letting me leave, but I was like, no. I was like, my dad, I'll go to my dad's. I'll go to my dad's. It's fine. There's room for me there. I'll go. We ended up taking myself to Mercy. And went to the emergency room there, and I walked up and I was like, I'm not safe with myself right now. And that was the scariest, strongest moment I had ever had, was taking myself somewhere. It was, like I said, absolutely terrifying. I was so scared. I cried all the way in. But then like 6 hours later, I was fine. I'm sitting in the ER, and they're like, well, how do you feel now? I was like, fine. So then they started talking about, like, well, maybe you're, like, bipolar, maybe you're, like you were just, like, you're in a manic state, and then you just drop super fast, but it's different than, like, a normal bipolar disorder. So we talked about that. I got put in a 2-week, like, is it 2 weeks, 6 weeks? Outpatient, like, program, it was either be admitted to Mercy, in an isolation room, they take everything from you, and you're just watched. They put you there, or this outpatient thing. I didn't end up doing that because you had to call day of to get your place that day, and I always, like, would forget and put it off. So then I started going to my counselor, like, 3 times a week at that point. But that was a real low for me. And at that point, I decided that I was going to make my life's mission helping people never feel like I felt. Because I remember how low I felt. I mean, because I clearly just had an emotional meltdown from that. Just talking about it. I know how low I felt. And I never want anybody to feel like that, because it hurts. It hurts and it's painful. And you just don't feel worthy anymore. And I never want somebody to not feel worthy of this life. Because it's worth it. And ever since then, I've really been training my mind to see the positive side of things and see the silver linings and the light at the end of the tunnels and all of that. And it's been really, really hard, but it's been such an rewarding journey to where now I can recognize, okay, you feel like this, we have felt like this before, how did we cope prior, how can we implement that now to move forward? I started journaling, and I really pride myself on being super, super real with people. I am the first person to talk about suicide and mental illness anywhere, because I can relate so well, and I just know other people can't, but other people might not be to the point where they can willingly talk about it, and that is okay. That's perfectly okay. You don't have to be there yet, and that's fine. So that is my overall story with mental health and how I got here. I could have made this 18 hours long, going into every little detail of why I am the way I am, but I could probably elaborate on that in different videos, if you guys are interested. But guys, that was exhausting. That was exhausting. I needed a good cry today, though, so thank you. I feel like that felt good. See? Silver linings, am I right? But that's me in a nutshell, guys. That's my life. That's how I got started in this mental health journey. It's not as traumatic as some. It's not as dramatic as some. It doesn't have to be. Your journey doesn't have to be the most traumatic thing out there to have it be valid. You don't have to be ready to take your own life to know that you need help. You don't have to feel like you're on the bottom of the ocean to be able to be lifted up. You don't have to hit rock bottom to move forward. You can move forward at any time. I have all the confidence that you will do great things. Like I said, and like I look, I have my struggles too. We are all going through this, but I am here to help you and love and support you no matter the circumstance. And if I can't help you myself, I will definitely guide you in the right direction. But I have all the confidence that you will do great things. Thank you for watching me cry today. Appreciate you. Stay happy, stay healthy, take care.